Hey guys, welcome to Night Owls. It is Sunday night, July 23rd. And hi, Sasha. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good.
Good, good. It's great to be back. We were back last week, and we had a couple of weeks off from Night Owls. And a lot of people missed it, so I think we're going to continue with these, and I'm going to try to get more guests during my daily shows. So I hope to make a few changes, revamp a few things. But yeah, it's in the middle of the summer. We had a pretty good weekend, real busy weekend. We went to a fish fry in a real country, rural. And then our friend in Eureka Springs, they had a barbecue. It was wonderful. We had a great time with them. And we saw the Barbie movie. And before I get into it, a lot of people are going to ask, "Oh, Ramsey Paul, why'd you go to see the Barbie movie?" And I did not want to go. Okay. And Sasha goes, "Well, you don't have to go if you don't want to." But, Sasha wanted to see it because I think a lot of girls, they play with Barbie and they like the idea. And I'm like, I'm a man. I'm not a homosexual. What do I want to see
Well, why
Barbie?
did you go then? I could have saved $8.
I know. So I decided to
You just
go
wasted my
because
money.
to be able to comment on it. So I think it worked out well. So I'm glad I went. And although I'm not glad about the movie,
No, it
and
was
we'll
bad.
talk a little bit about that and about the whole feminism thing and just in general. So if you guys want to kind of interact with the show, if you watched it, if you have questions, it doesn't have to be just about Barbie. If you're new to Night Owls, this typically isn't a political stream. Although we'll answer questions if you have a political question. But we talk about culture events, and there's a couple ways you can do it. We have super chats on YouTube, and we're live on Rumble. And let me make sure it's going good on Rumble now. Hopefully it is. And there's also power chats, and I appreciate the power chat here, the link here, and we love to get your feedback on whatever you thought. So, yeah. Okay. So we saw Barbie, and I guess we got to do a little bit of background. I when I was a kid, I knew about Barbies, but when I was a kid, you had boy toys and girls' toys, and obviously Barbie was a girl's toy, and so I never played with Barbie. I played with army men, our dolls, little green army men that have wars with each other. But I think for women, I would say almost the majority of American women, they had some experience with Barbies, and I think you were in that category, right, Sasha?
Yes.
And, just curious, how do you guys play with them? And I'll explain how I played with Army Men, is I would have wars, and I would set them up, and I'd throw a ball that'd be like a grenade and, to kill some people, and so that's how I played with Army Men. So how did you play what would be a typical Barbie session like a girl would play? How did it go?
Um, I don't know. They would go out with their friends or they'd go dancing or whatever. They'd go on
Yeah.
dates. Well, I used to have the 90210 dolls. Well, I still do actually. And I have a Barbie dream house. And me and Mosca would play with them when we were probably too old to be playing with Barbies. We were like 13, but we would make them like they were our friends and stuff.
Mhm.
Like he would be Jason Priestley and I would be like Shannon Doherty or something. And then we just like have parties and I don't know, do stuff we wanted to do that I guess we couldn't do because we were kids with no money. So there'd always be something exciting happening.
Yeah,
I know.
I saw a lady today on Twitter, someone retweeted her, who was it? I don't know, but she was talking about how she had the Barbie dream house and she did similar things as you did. And it was kind of funny because there is some truth that came on the movie because I was saw some other girl on Twitter, I forget which one. She said Kens were always kind of second thoughts. They
They
usually just
were.
played with the girls, but if they needed to be like at a ball or a dance, that's when Ken would come in.
It's true. Well, because Ken didn't have very many outfits, and it was more fun to dress Barbie. Like, and
Yeah.
that was the thing with the movie. I mean, it was bad, but it could have been good. They could have been fun. They could have had fun with it. But one of the jokes that was kind of funny was they were going from like our world back to Barbie world with people that never been to Barbie world.
Yeah.
And Barbie said, we could change clothes again. And it's funny because you do like change their outfits a lot, or I did when I was a kid, or you like to buy outfits for them. So that was kind of like one of those jokes that they should have focused on jokes like that, like how absurd a lot of the Barbie stuff is, but instead they had to go down this weird preachy route and try to get like I don't know, they just got really preachy and a lot of it didn't even make sense.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And oh, well, we already got a power chat, Johnny. Thank you, $50. I see girls as liking dolls and Barbies, not as a social construct, but natural. I think girls become young mothers to the doll, dress it up. Do you both agree it's natural or a societal setup by culture and tradition? I think most of it is natural. When I was young, the real left wingers, they didn't have social justice warriors, but they still had a few were starting to come out. And they were trying to get like the girls to play with more like trucks and the boys to play with dolls. I mean, they didn't have the whole transgenderism nonsense, but the idea was, oh, you can still be a boy and play with a doll or a girl and play with a truck. But girls tended, to much to their dismay, the girls typically wanted to play with dolls and boys, army men and trucks and guns. So I think there is definitely a mostly a nature or aspect to it. And uh, so, what are your thoughts on that, Sasha?
I don't
Were
know
you
because
pushed into it, or would you just naturally
no,
wanted to?
I naturally wanted to, but I played with boy toys too. Like I had a
Hmm.
General Lee car, which I just found going through my
Hmm.
dad's junk because we both liked Dukes of Hazzard when I was a kid. So it's like I had that, and I had Ninja Turtles. I had He-Man toys too, and Mario Brothers. I had stuff that was considered. I guess Mario now is kind of considered for everybody, but I had a lot of girl stuff too. I just like toys in general, and they would all play together, just kind of like Toy Story. That's why I think people like Toy Story because I had a She-Ra castle, and I had little minifigures of like Care Bears and Cabbage Patch Kids and stuff, and they would play in the She-Ra castle. Because I didn't have a Barbie dream house till I was like 13, so I didn't have one when I was really little. But um, I don't know, I just like certain cartoons and I like the toys that go with them. Like I like action figures too. Never got into like GI Joe or Transformers, but I did like He-Man. But He-Man had girl characters too. And I know it was kind of funny. My sister told me a story once when she was growing up. Her and my brother, he had He-Man, and she had Barbie and stuff. And he said that she would take his He-Mans and make like them dance, like He-Man would dance with Barbie, or like he didn't like that she would do girly things with his toys.
Yeah. So I think I think a lot of the movie, and we'll start out before it kind of start at the beginning and the initial impressions. I would say there was a lot of women, obviously, that went to this Barbie because I think there's a lot of nostalgia, and a lot
Hmm.
of the women I know say dressed up in pink, and I
They
think a
did.
lot of women have a lot of good feelings thinking about back to their Barbie days, and was there a little bit people like Barbies because back in the day Barbie was pretty and girls wanted a pretty doll?
I guess. I'm not sure. I can't remember when I got my first Barbie. I've just had Barbies as long as I remember.
Hmm.
I like the clothes and stuff on them. Like I had my first one, I really remember I had two. I had the workout Barbie. She was in
Hmm.
Toy Story with the blue outfit. I don't remember what she's called, Shape Get in Shape Barbie or something. I had her, and I had Day to Night, and I loved Day to Night. And Day to Night was like she was a businesswoman during the day, and she had a pink suit, and at night she'd take the pink suit off and had this like evening gown on, and her and Ken would go around the town. So I don't know. I did like the clothes. I think that's a big part of it is just the clothes.
Right.
And because I like Cabbage Patch Kids and baby dolls and stuff too, but Barbie probably was my favorite doll to play with. Because you can only do so much with baby dolls. With like Barbie, I mean, Barbie can do it whatever with because it's a full size doll, or it's bigger than like a baby doll. You could just kind of put to sleep and feed. Barbie can go dancing and go on dates and stuff like that.
And then the movie started, and I'll give you kind of and I'm not going to worry about spoilers because this movie deserves to be spoiled. So, uh, but I'll give, I guess, some of the positives. I thought Margot Robbie or Robbie, how you pronounce her name?
I'm not sure. I always thought it was Roby, but maybe it is Robbie. I don't know.
She looked really good as a Barbie. She did
She
look like
did.
a Barbie. And Ryan Gosling, I believe how you pronounce his name, he looked
Yeah,
pretty good as a Ken. And I thought they both did a good job on that. Oh,
they did.
we already got a caller. Mechwing Zero is calling in. Mechwing Zero, and he's part of our Gum Road. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, so K Max and I were talking, and he said I should call in. I actually went and saw it today, just out of morbid curiosity. And
Okay, what was your thoughts on the movie?
yeah, it was the punishment I deserved for having morbid curiosity on it. So I can't complain. But I've been enjoying listening to the conversation you've been having about it. I'll give it that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we talked today on Gum Road about it. So you went and watched it, and here's and we'll get over all the stuff in the movie, but one of the big controversies, like Laura Loomer and others were saying, was, oh, this movie's actually red pilled. They were kind of making fun of feminism, and I'm like, no, I mean the person that created this was a real leftist. She's a feminist, and it was over the top, but I don't think they meant it to be over the top. They just really believed it.
no, like and my suspicion about what Laura Loomer said was actually, I think, completely correct. In that, as I'm watching this movie, because it was so absurd, stupid in terms of the feminism, and really hateful. I would even say
Mhm.
it was quite hateful about like Ken's feelings and that sort of thing, and how she's convinced, no, you shouldn't care about hurting his feelings and that sort of thing. I would think, like, I can imagine how somebody could take it like Laura Loomer did, because it looks so like it's sort of like, you remember the video you made that was the spoof of we're only on Rumble, right?
Yes. No, we're on
So,
YouTube. Yeah.
so you remember the one where you made that spoof about COVID, about the Martians attacking, and
Yes. Yeah.
and that kind of thing. I like, it's sort of like, oh, that was obviously a spoof, but with how the COVIDians wanted to go, it's like they wanted to do that unironically almost. And I think this was a case of unironic, just the cartoon caricature that these people live by.
Yeah. I definitely got the that sense about it. So any other impressions you wanted to share?
I thought it was very like, I thought the humor was not that good, to be honest with you, for the most part, in terms of how clever it was. I didn't think it was that clever. Now, I thought if there was any good humor in it, it was mainly unintentional, to be honest with you. Um,
Yeah, and I think they had some. Sasha like joked, kind of chuckled at a couple things because she knows the Barbie lore, and some of the
that could
jokes
be true, yeah.
weren't offensive. Like they had, besides Ken's, they had this one character named Alan, and that was like an obscure character that they did have, right? Sasha Allen
I
was a
think so. He might be the wedding set that I have. I have a wedding set, and it's
yeah.
got like Ken and Barbie are not the ones married. It's like Midge and somebody else. I think it's Midge. She was discontinued though. It's a redhead and some other dude, and they got married. Maybe his name was Todd. I can't remember now, or he was one of the grooms, but it might have been Alan. I have to look next time I go to your house because it's at your house. But one of the jokes I did think was funny, and if you don't buy Barbies, you probably wouldn't get the joke, but Barbie ends up in our world, and like the headquarters of Mattel find out, and they're all concerned about because Barbie like escaped, and they're like, we had an incident like this 3 years ago in Florida. Skipper escaped, and she wanted to babysit these kids, and she took them surfing and all this. And it's kind of funny because I actually have a babysitter, Skipper, because Skipper was like Barbie's teenage sister, and that was like how they'd make her a lot with other little dolls that she would take care of. So it was kind of funny just because they threw in Skipper, but some of the stuff you're not going to get the jokes. But I thought it was funny how they just kind of floated down, because if you play with Barbies, that's how they are. They don't like walk down the stairs really. You just kind of
Yeah, you
do
move
this
them
with
as a
them.
kid.
Yeah. so there
And-
was funny stuff like that, but I mean, I think it could have been like good for people like me that grew up on Barbie, but instead they had to try to go all preachy and political and like ruin the whole freaking thing.
Yeah, and we'll get into the movie, but I think overall one of the sad things is they could, and they're going to make a lot of money because of the nostalgia. It's
They
just
already
the
have.
brand. Yeah, they have and they will. But I think it could have been a lot better if they just played it more of a homage to the Barbie and kept the jokes like early on in the movie where it wasn't really political. It's just kind of making fun of, this is silliness of all the clothes she had and the discontinued Barbies and all that type of stuff. I think that would have worked better.
Yeah,
Well,
me too.
it's really aimed at, I would say, even though I'm sure plenty of little girls will see this movie, but I feel like it's aimed more like people like like Sasha and even like me, who are adults that like toys and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Sasha and I, when we saw it, one of the things she said, and I said too, it's not really a show for kids.
It's
Little girls
not.
wouldn't like it. It's an adult show, and it's it's a little bit. It's like 20% reminiscing and kind of having funny jokes about the old, Barbies, how silly it was, and 80% will get into politics. And that doesn't really go over with a lot of the little girls. So it wasn't a kids' movie.
It really wasn't. And I don't
Some of
think
the
if I was
humor
a kid,
wasn't
I
even
would have even got
appropriate.
it.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No, it really wasn't. So if you guys have kids and you're thinking, well, I don't care about politics, my little girl would like to see something cute, and
Mhm.
it's not really appropriate for
Yeah,
a
I don't
little girl.
recommend it for
Well,
that.
they didn't even really gear it toward little kids. Like even the kids in the movie were like teenagers. They weren't like little, and they were real snotty. Like all the girls in there, they're like, I hated Barbie when she went to like the real world. They're real hateful. Like you said, the movie was like really hateful. Like I think if I was even those kids' age and like my Barbie came to life to visit me, I'd think it was pretty cool. I might be a little freaked out about it at first, but I don't know. They were just like a lot of people. They were all mean spirited. It seemed like.
Hmm. Yeah, it was. That was the term I had after watching the movie, is very mean spirited. And again, I went in knowing, sure, okay, you want to make some jokes about men. I don't care, that's whatever. But it came across as a lot of just mean spirited. Oh, we got a super chat. Actually, K-Max has a super chat for Jackson. Jackson, did you feel the movie was anti-male as any movie you saw before? Was Thelma and Louise even as anti-male as this movie was?
I didn't think Thelma and Louise was anti-male.
I
It was
confess I haven't seen
anti-asshole.
it. I
It's a
haven't
good
seen
movie.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah,
I like it. I don't
Thelma
know.
and Louise was a much better movie than this.
Well, I knew somebody that thought it was anti-male too, and they refused to watch it for years. And then I was like, "No, watch it." And then they even agreed. They were like, "I don't think it's anti. I mean, it's pro-woman, but it's not anti-male. You can be pro-woman without hating men." I think it was like my friend Brandon likes that movie too, and he said it was an anti-asshole movie. So,
But this Barbie was an anti-male movie.
yes.
Yeah. So to answer K-Max's question here, I would have to actually say, yeah, I'm trying to think of another movie. Like Stepford Wives is a pretty anti-male movie, but I didn't get anywhere near as mean-spirited and corny, frankly, a vibe from that movie as this one.
No, me either.
Yeah, I do think K-Max. I would have to say it came across as really heavy propaganda you would see in North Korea or the Soviet Union, as just be so over the top. You think, wait a minute, are they trolling? But it is. They weren't. They were serious, and so yeah, I agree. It was definitely an anti-male movie.
It was for sure.
From just a film critic standpoint, I think this can sort of go with the anti-male, is it was too long. Like there are movies with that runtime that's an appropriate runtime for, but this movie dragged a little bit. I
It
thought.
did. By
It's
the
like,
end, I was like bored with it. Even
Yeah, I
after the
was looking at my
propaganda, I was
watch.
just me too.
Yeah,
I was like ready
yeah.
for it to be over.
And I think part of why it dragged, not saying all of it because it comes down to editing and stuff, is because there was such an emphasis on the lecture aspect of this. Like it's almost like the movie had to stop with that woman giving a lecture to all the Barbies about why it's so horrible to be a woman and why it's basically okay to mistreat men.
Yeah, there was literally the movie. I couldn't believe it. They just came out and they had their lecture. It was like, okay,
I missed the
what
lecture. I finally had to go to
Yeah.
the bathroom. I held it through the whole movie just about, and I said, "Screw it, I'm bored with the movie anyway. I'm going to the bathroom before it ends." And a million people go in the bathroom, so I missed the lecture. So I guess I lucked out there.
Yeah, it that was pretty bad. All right. Anything else, Jackson?
No, I just told K-Max I would call in and I'll go back to listening to you guys on the politics.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks to Mecha Wing Zero for calling in. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I haven't had a
And
caller in a long time.
yeah, and if you guys want to be a caller, just become a Gumroad member, and I post a link there, and we love to have you interact. All right. I guess we should describe the movie a little bit, and Sasha, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, the plot of the movie is a little bit like Toy Story, where dolls come to life, And what happened is Barbie was living in her Barbie world where everything's perfect because women or Barbies, they run everything. They are all the Supreme Court justices. They're the president, and the president was the black fat female Barbie. And that's another thing. If you want diversity, they had every imaginable combination that you can imagine. And so everything was perfect because women run things. Yeah, like that would have to be perfect. But and the Kens, who were the men, they actually had no function. The joke was they just beached, meaning they just stood on the beach all day. And so they just did the beach stuff, and they didn't really have jobs. And so everything was perfect. But then she started to feel sad, and she was feeling like she may die or something, and she may get fat. And what it
Because she
was,
got cellulite.
yeah, because it turned out the girl that was playing with her was starting to feel sad. So they didn't explain it very well.
Well, it was the girl's mother, because the girl didn't want the Barbie anymore, so she gave it to her mom, and her mom like worked for Mattel, and she was like sketching like Obsessed with Death Barbie or something, or like Gloom and Doom Barbie type. You know, she made all these sketches, and that's why Barbie started like questioning things.
So Barbie had to come to the real world. So what they did is they came to the real world, and then in the real world they found it was this horrible misogynist place where men run everything. And Ben Shapiro was right. They non-ironically said the word patriarchy like 15 times.
Probably.
It was crazy.
It seemed like every other word they were saying it.
And so that was part, and so they had to do that, and then what basically happened after that, they had to go back to Barbie land. But Ken really started to like the real world because men are in charge, and that felt good for Ken. And then Ken went back to Barbie land, and he basically changed Barbie land to be like a frat bro place where all the guys were having beer and the girls were having fun serving guys beer and just like looking cute. And it was a big party, and that was considered a bad thing. So Barbie and her people, they had to figure a way to save Barbie land from the evil patriarchy. And so they decided to manipulate men because men are stupid. And all the women there got brainwashed by Kens, so they had to unbrainwash them. And they went, and then the end of the movie, they unbrainwashed all the women. And then Barbie, for whatever reason, decided to go back to the real world. So that was it in a nutshell. Anything I'm missing that you want to bring out there? I mean, I'm kind of forgetting some of the stuff. Maybe.
Well, when they went to when the women started going out with the Ken dolls and stuff, and they forgot who they were, because that's kind of how they made it. Like the president forgot she was president, and the Supreme Court forgot they were the Supreme Court. They got together and got this plan that you're going to get the guys to where they can distract them or whatever, so they can de-brainwash the women and talk to them. And it was really, really manipulative. Like that they made women look really bad in it too. I mean,
well, this is an inherent contradiction of feminism in the real world. Is they like to say women are as strong as men and they have as much agency as a man does, but then they also like to treat women like children, and feminists do. Like there is that famous professor in Florida that said all sex between men and women, it's rape because women can't consent because we live in a patriarchy. So she's basically treating women as like children. Children can't consent. And feminists, they do have this real kind of hatred towards women. They look at women as being kind of dumb and easily manipulated. But at the same time, they want to see them as empowered. So it's this weird contradiction that you even saw in the movie, because really the women came off. They wanted to make the women look real powered and empowered and great, but they came off looking really manipulative, weak. Barbie was like crying, laying on the floor, and it was pretty pathetic.
And
really.
They used Ken, like if they needed something or whatever. It's kind of like, well, if you're supposed to be so great, why don't you do it yourself? And if you're so great, why did somebody get to change it in one day? It was like one day in the movie. It's supposed to be one day that he got back and turned it into a patriarchy. And it's like, well, I mean, that wouldn't have happened if these women were supposed to be so empowered. It seems like they'd tell the Ken dolls to F off and just keep things the way it wasn't, but it wasn't like that. And I didn't really get that either, because it's like the Barbies aren't supposed to be interested in the Kens. They just hang out with each other all the time. It's just like they have parties and everything, but it's like people in real life, if you're young and you're like female or male, you'd want to meet the opposite sex at a party. It wouldn't be like, oh, all the cute guys are over there, but let's just hang out with all the women. It's like, well, are you gay? Like, what's the deal? I don't know.
Yeah, it was basically in their world, men had no function. They were just idiots, and women would have a perfect. Basically, the view of the movie was that if all men were killed, the world would be a wonderful place. That was basically their thesis. And you think I'm exaggerating, but really, that was pretty much it.
Oh, another
And
part that was kind of dumb, I thought too, was Ken was it could have been funny, but like he like discovered horses and he loved
yeah,
horses in the real world. And they made it like everything was about horses in Barbie land. And they had all these
well,
posters of horses. I was like, women love horses just as much, if not more so than men. Like I know so many women, I like horses. Like to act like that's a man's thing is kind of ridiculous because women like hell Barbie had horses. I guess the bitch that directed this or wrote it didn't understand. Like, go back. Barbie had all these pretty horses because I've got a bunch of Barbie horses. So I don't even know where that came from.
I think they didn't understand the people that made this movie were probably lived in Manhattan, and they consider anything like horses being like rural and evil. And so they consider like men dressed up like cowboys and like horses.
Well, I
But
thought
that
a lot
was a
of
weird thing.
I'm sorry. I thought a lot of rich people liked horses too because their kids will go horseback riding and they'll compete because it costs a lot of money to do that. If you have young
Mhm.
kids, I mean, unless that's just a rural thing, but I would think people all over the country would like horses.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would
know.
too. It didn't really make a that didn't make a lot of sense, the anti-horse bit of it. And let's see here. Uh let's see. Oh, Patty Leather, thank you. Patty said that's a red flag. A Barbie film should be suitable for little girls.
It should be.
Yeah, it should have been. I think if they had a better writers, they could have definitely made it both for both. They could have had like inside jokes for adults, just kind of making fun of some of the silly stuff, but at the same time, they could have done that better. Oh, we got one for Robert for $5. Thank you, Robert. I really do appreciate this, and I'll copy this in over. And this is Robert here. Robert, let's see here. These woke Barbie creators' minds, men came up with a plan to hold women back from being soldiers, CEOs, and lumberjacks.
Huh.
Why is it men did so horrible to them? This isn't Saudi Arabia or Pakistan either. This is a good point, Robert, that I mentioned to Sasha. Part of the movie, and when I say this, I don't mean the technology, but the mindset felt really dated. It was like
Mhm.
going into a feminist seminar in the 1970s where they still think it's like the 1950s, where men, it was really strange. Like they were pushing the idea that, women can be doctors now too. And it's like most doctors in med school now are women. And
They are. My doctor's a woman.
so they're acting like the board of Mattel, they were all white men and they were all bigoted.
Oh, they made a Jew joke too.
They did. One of the CEOs said, "Well, I have a best friend that's Jewish." So they were trying to imply that he was anti-Semitic, but he was trying to hide it by saying he was, one of it, which is ironic because who made the film?
Right.
But it was so they had that kind of fell flat. It didn't even. I think a lot of people were like, "What? Where'd that come from?" Unless you were kind of keyed into our culture, understand who makes these films and how they think and their paranoia. That joke didn't make any sense. I bet
Mhm.
95% of the people didn't get the joke because it had nothing to do with Jewishness or anything like that. But he just spurted that out. So all of the people of the board are evil white men. And so, yeah. And then it was funny because like Barbie was upset. She couldn't believe because in her Barbie world, even construction workers are women. And she got into the real world and all the like construction workers were men. And of course, they were catcalling her and looking at her as an object. And she never experienced that before because, oh, you know how women hate to be looked at as wonderful, pretty creatures. So it was very dated that way. And the irony of this, and let me just show you guys this here. I don't think you've even seen this, Sasha. I just retweeted this. But what happened? One of the scenes they went down Venice Beach because they went out of Barbie Land, and they were all, I think Ken was dressed up like a flamboyant cowboy with frill, and Barbie was all dressed up in loud colors, and they went down Venice Beach. And if you remember that scene, but what happened? Greta Gerwig, was she the director, the shitlib
Yes.
director? Yeah, she lamented that Margot Robbie felt self-consciousness during the filming of that scene because passerbys, because they actually were like real people around there, besides this, the actors would compliment Ryan Gosling and not Margot.
Probably because
And
they were scared of.
well, that's the thing. And she was saying, yeah, this just proves how sexist our society is, that men get compliments, but women don't. And it kind of disproved her point, because in the movie, Barbie was a victim of all these catcalls and stuff. But in real life, men ignored Margot Robbie. They probably checked her out, but they spoke to Ryan Gosling because he's probably more approachable. And they said to him, hey, man, you're looking good, because he's all buff.
Right.
And if they know that if they said that in California to her, it'd be like sexual harassment.
Well, that's what I mean, because she looked great. I mean, of course, people are going to look at her.
But no one said anything to her.
Right, because they don't want to get in trouble, like you said.
But what's funny, because what happened in real life was opposite of what the movie was trying to show.
Right.
Which was ironic. And it was funny because even more so, even though they're trying to make women into men, women are still women. And Margot was upset that she got no compliments, even though she's pretty. She got no compliments. And she's like, what the fuck's happening? And how come Ryan's getting all the compliments? So she was still defined by her beauty, which is something the Barbie movie would say is evil to do. And so it was kind of funny. It was real meta, because they're doing a movie about how Barbies are just, women are just sex objects. And here's Barbie in real life going down Venice Beach, and all these men catcalling her. And, oh, horrible sexist man. They need to learn. She needs to go back to Barbie land. But in real life, she was upset that men were ignoring her and paying attention to Ryan Gosling.
Right.
So it was kind of funny. It kind of disproved Greta Gerwig's thesis, the whole. But she was trying to make this Margot being the victim in this. But I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. So
it is.
Yeah, I think that is. So it was really dated in that sense of how they looked at men and women. And but yeah, literally they felt men had no value. Men's feelings are irrelevant. You don't really have to care what they think.
Mm-mm.
And they're just there to serve women is their whole function. And women are, and the women here were so unlikable. They were always bitchy, manipulative, crying. I mean, it would make you think after watching this movie, like, geez, I mean, we talked about how I think the groypers go too far and that anti-woman stuff gets bad. But my God, this movie would almost make you anti-woman after watching it, because it shows women in such a negative light. And they weren't trying to do that. It's just that's their view of feminism, is feminists are supposed to be these entitled women that are always bitchy and angry and don't give a shit about men and think the world, they deserve everything. And it was really kind of bad.
It was. I was disappointed. I really wanted the movie to be good. Like a lot of it could have been. I mean, even the part, like you said, where they're skating into art world. Like, it was kind of funny. Like, they go in and they steal these clothes because they're dressed real outrageous, and they go in and then they get this really like loud cowboy outfits.
Yeah.
And that was funny. And that's what they should have done. They could have made it kind of like the Brady Bunch movie meets Toy Story, because the Brady Bunch were trapped in the 70s. They could have done that with Barbie, with the jokes about her feet and stuff. Like, if you're a kid that grew up with Barbie, you'd get the jokes like about Skipper, because it's a movie for women anyway, and it could have been like for women and girls. They could have made it kid friendly, but they could have made it funny, like where they go into our time and there's just all this craziness, like they don't use money to pay for stuff. Even though when I think about it, I have a beekeeper Barbie and she does come with a little cash register. So some of the stuff, I don't know, the lady maybe didn't have a lot of Barbies, because I think Barbie was kind of a capitalist too. Barbie had a McDonald's, pretty much anything you can think of that there's a Barbie for it. So
yeah. And so that was That was kind of the basis of it. So it was a movie that I thought has some promise because it was pretty in a lot of ways how they did the special effects, and Margot, I
Margot.
mean, and Ryan, they both did a good job in acting. But it just fell short. It not only fell short, it just became kind of mean spirited and became a propaganda lecture
Oh,
against men.
totally. It did. That's why, yeah,
I would definitely never see that again, and I
me
would not
either.
recommend it. And a
Mm-mm.
lot of times, movies sometimes are so bad they're kind of good. They're campy because we saw this one movie is supposed to be real horrible called Showgirls, and
Oh, I thought you
I
were going to say Cocaine Bear.
well, no, Showgirls is always like, oh, one of the worst movies, horrible, but it's so kind of campy. It's funny. I kind of like it, but
Hmm.
this isn't a movie that's campy funny. So I don't think it. It's just a really the propaganda of it's just over the top. And again, even from a propaganda view, if you're going to do propaganda, it's a little bit better if you do a little more subtle.
Yeah.
This was so over the top. I don't even think it was effective propaganda.
Well, if you look
And
at the reviews, a lot of people that gave it like 1 star were kind of like us, like they knew what was up. But a lot of people, I don't know if they're smart enough to get it really, or they probably just think it's a "you go girl" type thing. Where even though it makes, like you said, women look really bad, and I don't know.
yeah, someone on the comment said director Greta Gerwig appears to be projecting her bitterness in the film stemming from her divorce, and it shows.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah, it was like a really the demographic that would like this movie, in my opinion, would be kind of what the wine like the middle-aged divorced woman that doesn't have, this kind of real bitter that drinks a lot of box wine and is always mad about men. That really loved wearing masks during COVID. That's the type of the Karen stereotype would probably
Hmm.
love it. So there is a demographic, the you go girl demographic that does that non-ironically. That's about the only demographic I could see that really likes it, but unless you're like a total soy boy or something. But
Gay men maybe like
maybe,
it. I don't know because I
but
did see
it,
some
it, it wasn't
reviews.
even it wasn't even that kitschy though. I mean, I don't even
No,
think gay men would like it, to be
I don't
honest.
know because there were some reviews and they could have been fake, but on Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes there were some reviews that had guy names. So I'm sure that there's guys that collect Barbies. Like in fact, I think the person that has the biggest collection is a dude because I've seen one on YouTube and this guy had tons of Barbies.
Well, and I think another demographic, like I saw Chrissy Mirror liked it, and the
Oh,
reason
she
she,
did?
yeah, because she
Why?
didn't, because it was Barbie and she got to wear pink and all
I
that
like
bullshit.
Barbie too. I mean, I like the doll. And somebody in the comments said that the cartoon movies are pretty good. And I've seen a couple of them and they're not bad. I
Hmm.
mean, they're too little for me to, but they're not like hateful. No, you know what? I like the Barbie Life in a Dream House because that's kind of what I was talking about. It had jokes about Barbie that you would get, but kids could enjoy it too. Because when I went to Gem Con, people were talking about it there. That's why I started watching it. And there's not very many episodes of it, but it's really funny and it's not mean spirited. It's not anti Ken. If anything, they love each other. If you watch it, like Barbie loves Ken and Ken loves Barbie, it's not this dividing the sexes crap. So I don't know, like, well, I would never take her advice on a movie, and that's a stupid reason. Like, oh, because she wears pink. So
Well, I think a lot of people would just like the nostalgia aspect of it because they grew up with Barbies, but I mean, that's to me not enough to like a movie
same
because it was,
here.
it was, it was just too much on that.
And if I want
So,
to get nostalgic, I'll just get one of my Barbies out and look at it. I don't need to sit through a horrible lectury movie.
mhm.
Like I don't get it. It's like the Ninja Turtles. That movie looks god awful too, and I won't be sitting through that either. Um, no matter how nostalgic I might be. So I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, I
I can't believe
well,
so many people like it. Like you said, Laura Loomer. I would expect a lot more people to be like, this movie is like, even if you are a feminist, like, why would you want to sit through some preachy ass? I mean, it was just way too preachy. I want to
well,
go to movies to be entertained.
yeah, we don't want the preachiness of it. It was way over the top. And just as a movie itself, as MechWing Zero said, it went on a little too long. It
It
could have
did.
been It was 2 hours. It could have been edited down to an hour and a half and probably been a little better.
Well, they could have cut that whole part about the Mattel CEOs out. Like, why did they
Yeah.
have to go to Barbie World? It was so stupid. And they got there, they didn't even do anything.
No.
That whole thing could have been cut out. Will Ferrell is not funny. I've never liked Will Ferrell. He kind of ruins anything he's in. Like, I love Eastbound and Down, but like his character was so stupid. Like, they could have got rid of it. But he was like one of the producers, but I don't know what the hell he was doing in the Barbie movie. It's like, oh, Will Ferrell's here to like be annoying, but he's supposed to be funny. Okay, he's not.
Yeah, no, I didn't. That part fell flat, and it was. I thought it dragged on a little long, and I guess the only thing I'd rate as positive is visually appealing. They had a lot of bright colors,
They did.
and Margot did look like Barbie, and Ryan did look like a Ken, and I thought they did a good job. And there were a few early jokes that were kind of funny, or they kind of paid homage to the silliness of Barbie, and that was good.
Right.
But then it took a kind of a dark turn in just mean spiritedness, and to people that said, and we touched on this, there wasn't a lot of people. Oh, it was secretly a red pill movie because they were showing the silliness of feminism. Like, no, they didn't do that intentionally. I mean, you could see that a little bit because it's so over the top, but she was a feminist, and I just saw another shit on MSN or something. They were praising how it's exposes toxic masculinity and all this bullshit. So yeah, I didn't really care for it. So
no, if some director like Mel Gibson or something had directed it, you could maybe say that. But when you know the woman's history, and I didn't see this, but I saw she remade Little Women, and they said they changed the ending, and I haven't seen it, so this is just what I read. So I'm assuming that they probably ruined Little Women, or that woman did.
probably.
And she did that shitty Charlie's Angels movie, I'm pretty sure too, that had that dumb bitch from Twilight in it. I think that's who was in it. I can't stand Kristen Stewart. That looked really woke too. So
yeah, it was bad that way. So yeah, I'm just trying to think what else I had about the movie.
So that makes me, just knowing that woman directed it and she's getting divorced, and that might where some of that hatefulness comes from too.
Yeah, it could be. It was. Yeah, it just doesn't. It wasn't a fun movie, I guess.
No, it started out kind of like it was going to be fun, and then it just got way too preachy and too anti-male.
Yeah, it just wasn't. And I think that the characters, when I read this, is actually Ken had a more interesting character because, and I read, and this is a problem Hollywood has with feminism, is they can't have a woman character have any flaws because, girl power. But because of that, it's a boring character. They can't overcome their flaws because women don't have flaws based on feminism.
Right, kind of like Star Wars, that stupid girl.
And so because they treat women two-dimensionally, because they're, you can't show any flaws with a woman, it makes the characters boring. And Ken was actually a more interesting character.
Well, he kind of grew.
Yeah, well, Margot was just her character was just flat. It didn't change.
It was.
And it's not her fault, but
in some ways.
Yeah, it became almost like an unlikable character, really.
Because she was likable at first. It's kind of like, oh, it's fun, it's Barbie, and then it turned into, oh, I'm all crying because the Kens took over our land and all this stuff. And
yeah, and to be honest, this is the unintentional red pilling. The Barbieville looked a lot more cool with the Kens running things.
I don't know. I didn't like the colors as much. I liked all the pink.
Yeah, but they were all like partying, having a great time, and everyone was having fun. So I kind of enjoyed that because but the Barbie land looked very dystopian. But they put Barbie land back into it. So just kind of as a summary, I don't think this is definitely a kids movie. I wouldn't even recommend it if you're a Barbie fan. It's if you can watch it free maybe, but it's not camping in a way like, oh, maybe it's just a camping movie I could like. And yeah, I regret. I'm happy because I was able to do a review on it, but I looked at my watch a couple times. I was bored and I was kind of really offended on part of it, and I didn't want to. At a certain point, I didn't want to be there. Joseph had a thank you. the movie have any people of color? Oh, this is another thing I wanted to bring up too before that. Then I'll answer your question, Joseph. I forgot about this because there's a big to-do about the transgender. There was a transgender Barbie, but to be fair, he wasn't in it much. What is that true? I didn't even notice it until Sasha
I could
pointed it
tell
out.
right away the voice.
But he didn't have a big part in it, I don't
No,
think.
I mean, he had a couple lines in it, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
You could kind of forget about him. And they did dress him like a woman, so there was that. At least he didn't have like a beard or something.
Yeah. Joseph, did people have any people of color? Tons.
Yeah.
And it had every color imaginable and every disability. And you had fat Barbies, you had Barbies in wheelchair, you had blacks, Asians.
But that's
you name it.
because I think there is a Barbie of every kind.
Yeah, but
There is Barbie in a
the
wheelchair.
villains were all white males.
No, the Asian guy.
No,
Oh,
no,
you
no.
mean the Mattel people?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they were all white.
Yeah, all evil white males. That
They were.
I have some Jewish friends that got spurted out for no reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it was interesting how they did that. But yeah, the Kens, they had the Kens, to be honest, a lot of them, they had a black Ken and an Asian Ken, and some of the Kens honestly kind of look gay to me if I'd
They did.
Yeah.
Well, they always
So-
dress Ken kind of gay too.
Yeah.
If you look at like some of those old Ken dolls, like I have one with an ascot.
Mhm.
So just like
Mhm.
he was kind of into fashion too, because Barbie was, but
Yeah. And then it was a bad message because she's thinking, oh, maybe I should be, because Ken was always simping for Barbie and he could never be anything more than a friend. And she was like, oh, I don't want to hurt his feelings. And they convinced her, no, you should hurt their feelings because men are evil. Basically, that's what she said, that don't worry about men's feelings. It was a really kind of a nasty movie that way.
it was.
It
Yeah,
was
it was a letdown.
Yeah. And it was also kind of boring, to be honest.
It was. Well, it got boring at first. I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of cool. They're going on our world. And then it was like,
Right.
oh, then it got super preachy. And then a lot of it didn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, so.
Yeah, it started okay and it could have been something, but then it went down a bad path. But
Mhm.
I guess that was kind of, that was in the cards.
It was. Well, I was hoping it would be better. So. And it still has really good reviews, but you said all these like women that are kind of in our sphere seem to like it. So maybe we're in the minority, like me, you, and Ben Shapiro and Jackson.
Well, I don't know. A lot of women didn't like it, I think, because I saw some on Twitter that didn't like it, but that could be. I don't know. It's a movie that when it especially with the whole incel problem and all these guys hate women now, which I do think is an issue and is really negative. We need to get that out. But if they should see this movie, it would confirm to them the evil nature of women.
Yeah, it would.
It really would.
It's not helping anybody, really.
No, it really is. It's just
And how many of these women are they going to convince, like, oh, these men are keeping you down? Because there's a lot of stupid people out there. It's kind of like what they do to black people, too. Like, everything's white people's fault. And it's like, instead of just, hey, take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah. And then.
Stop!
Oh, boy, I heard something. What's happening there?
They're fighting again.
Yeah, it's just heard like. Arr!
It's been like that all day.
Yeah.
It gets irritating. Sorry about that.
But see, some of this stuff, and I'm going to show you this, Sasha. Just it says in Barbie, but the Little Mermaid did horrible. It didn't do very well. They had the black Little Mermaid, and now they're talking. Here's Snow White, which was meant to be for a white girl, and here's her thing.
You were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that
she's
is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Oh,
and the
brother.
father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really important story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign.
So they're making that woke too.
Yeah, I know. I saw the pictures of it. It looks awful. And it's sad the girl that plays the evil queen's way prettier than Snow White.
I know, that was the thing. It was like, the part of the Snow White is the evil queen was supposed to be jealous of the beauty of
Snow White.
Snow White, but actually the evil queen is prettier than this.
Why does everything have to be about being a leader? Like, ooh, we're gonna make her a leader. Can't you just be happy getting married? I mean, and being in love. Like that's what most people want.
Well, no, they
Is
think
just to be in
that's
love. Like
the feminists think that's evil. They really
well,
do.
that's why the feminists are all like screwed up.
They think women should just be about being girl boss power and all this, and that's the thing that they really push. Here's a kind of a good meme about that. Let me just show you this here. Snow White, evil queen who was jealous of her looks.
Yeah, Snow White's kind of homely, really.
Yeah, well, they had to do like a mixed race person to play Snow White. Doesn't make sense because Snow White, the story was her skin was as white as snow, and a fair woman. So now, unlike Barbie, because Barbie had the nostalgia factor. I think this movie's going to do really poor.
Well, and Barbie looked like Barbie's supposed to look. Like
Right.
Margot Robbie looked like, the Barbies I grew up with. So that's a thing too. People aren't going to want to go see Snow White that looks like she's from Mexico or wherever.
Oh, it's funny because someone already was talking about that. Let me see. We got a super chat. They brought up Snow White even before we brought it. But, oh, yeah, K-Max did. I think the new franchise they plan to ruin is Snow White. Rams tweeted about the new idea for Snow White, girl power and anti-male. Yeah, I think people are really tired of it because that what they really do is they're trying to make women or girls into men in movies, and it just comes across as flat. So
it does. And why do they have to ruin Snow White too? When are they going to be done? They're going to probably redo Cinderella, and they'll have to make that all different too.
And I've always said at the core, feminists really hate women because they hate women to act like women. They think women should be men, and they hate women that act like women. So if you want to act like a woman, you want the prince to save you and fall in love. That's evil. You need to be an empowered bitch. That's the way you need to be, and that's part of the issue they have. And so I think that's pretty bad. But I think it's going to bomb just like Little Mermaid did. And
a few people go see it, but it's not. Disney's so stupid. They should go back to just trying to make good movies.
Well, another thing I saw, this one lady wrote, the reason Barbie does well, even though the message is so shitty, there's a pent up demand to seeing pretty white people in movies with like Ryan Gosling. So the two leads were a blonde white man and a blonde white female. You don't see that anymore. That's
really
kind
don't.
of verboten.
Well, they do ginger side and everybody now too.
Yeah, they definitely want to eliminate white. So there was a pent up desire, I think, to see pretty white people in the movie when they have these homely mixed race people in that we're supposed
like
to
the Little Mermaid. We're supposed
ugly.
to pretend like that woman's attractive, and it's like, maybe somebody I guess somebody does. It's not like, I don't know. I remember in the 80s when I was a kid, most of the women in movies were like beautiful, and you don't really, now you see like mediocre people and everything now.
Yeah.
Like I can see mediocre people at Walmart.
Yeah.
Even the models now are fat.
And I guess the Snow White is played by this lady named Rachel Zegler or whatever. And she's Colombian. And I'll guess what her sexuality is. Pansexual.
Oh, brother. What does that mean?
I don't know.
I don't know what it means either.
Yeah. So, it's going to be the usual woke shit. So probably don't take your kids to see that. That's for sure.
I will not be going to see Snow White. Barbie was one thing. Snow White is not. And see Little Mermaid either.
Yeah, there's a lot of. We saw some previews, and I'm like, just based on the cast, is like I'm not going to see it. Disney's coming out with a haunted mansion,
which they've already made a haunted mansion movie. I've never seen it, but they made one of like 2003 or 6 or something.
Yeah, well, let's just
say I think Jennifer Tilly was in it, and it's like they got to redo that too.
Yeah, this one is. I won't make a joke that I didn't. Let's just say it's very diverse, very spooky. Let's just say that, very spooky mansion. And so I'm not going to see that. It's too scary for me. That's some of the previews I just watched. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to watch that. It's pretty well. People. Someone said I'm sure it'll do great at the box office. Snow White. Nah, I don't think it will. I really don't.
Little Mermaid I didn't do.
No, they didn't. again, Barbie was a little exception because people wanted the pink, the girl, blonde people. You know, it
Well, and they
was
made it like it was going to be this cute little comedy.
right.
Instead, it turned into a preach fest. And
Yeah.
I like that, when I read about it too, it was like they ran out of pink paint. Like,
hmm
because they used so much pink paint, there was like a national shortage because of the Barbie movie. And I was like, well, that's kind of funny. I like the color pink. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, like so many things, it got ruined. I'm glad the Mario movie was at least good. I got see a couple good movies this year. I want to see the new Hunger Games movie. That might be good. I don't know.
So kind of wrapping this up, what would you, on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, how many stars would you give this movie?
2. I can only say 2 because I liked the dream houses and the pink, and I liked Barbie and Ken, but I didn't like the messaging. And I don't know, the story was kind of like a lot of it didn't make a lot of sense. And though I know it's not supposed to maybe it's not supposed to 100% make sense, but it seems like they should have some explanations of things that they just kind of didn't really explain.
Yeah, I would say if you didn't have the preaching in it, it would have been a 3 because the story still had issues and
It
it was
did.
kind of boring. So if it didn't have all the political lecturing, it'd be a 3. But because of the political lecturing was so offensive to me, I would have to give it a 1. Meaning, if I would not want to see that again,
No, I
at
wouldn't
all.
either.
And so I'd rather do anything else. I'd rather go to the dentist and see this movie again. So.
Yeah.
It was a rare movie that actually offended me, and I don't get offended much, but it was just over the top, and but we'll see. A lot of people liked it though, I guess. So I don't know how honest Rotten Tomatoes is. I think they manipulated it a little bit, but
Maybe there was a lot of like I looked through the comments though, and a lot of people seemed to like it. So
yeah, I don't know how much people can put out the preachiness. So maybe some people can, and
some people maybe just don't even pay attention to the preachiness. They just I don't know, want to see a movie.
yeah, I couldn't. Like I said, usually you can put that push that away, but I think it would have been hard this movie to push it away because it's so in your face. So
It was.
yeah. So well, Sasha, it's been a really good night. It's good to have these night owls, and it's great to have you guys back. And it's thank you all for being here. And I do the Ramsey Paul show Monday through Friday, and hopefully I'll start getting more guests and stuff. I'm going to revamp some things. I'm thinking about it.
Oh, somebody
And
said Oppenheimer was kind of boring.
yeah, I might see that. I don't know.
I
I've
wanted
heard
to see it, but it's like I don't know if it's going to be slow. I could just wait and watch it.
yeah, or you just get it when it's free or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. So, well, guys, thank you, and we will see you next Sunday on Night Owls. Thanks for joining us. Bye bye.
Bye.